y'all bear with me. Um, I'm thinking about it's February. How did everybody do on their goals? Who had some personal growth mission like outlined, mapped out for yourself for January that maybe happened or maybe didn't happen. I don't know about you guys, but maybe every other month I'm on track with like working on a health goal or reading some books or something like that, what we're going to be talking about today, I wanted to take in just a little different angle here in the beginning because you know, just like us, our folks that we support need to have personal growth as well. And I just sort of wanted to change our thinking about goals, right? Is it the piece of paper? Yeah. But we wish it wasn't just the paperwork, right? So I want to talk to you about a couple of things. Am I sharing, by the way? I don't even know if I'm sharing. Yes, I am. Okay. So I wanted to talk about thinking about our personal growth and applying it to those folks that we support and using that as a lens. I didn't really get anything major done in January. It's not the end of February yet. So I'm happy to keep working. But I do think as we put ourselves, and this might help staff when you're thinking about, writing goals and or working on goals during your day program day. If I've got anybody in residential, it's going to be the same. We're really going to get to the point where we're trying to work to on the same pathway for residential and day. We're not there yet, but that's the thing. So if you ever hear me talk, I'll say, hey, talk to residential about it too. So that's not wrong to do, but just thinking about goals that individuals are setting and that teams are helping individuals set more in a personal growth mindset. So I just put together, like, literally, don't look, it's just words and white and black slides, nothing fancy. So before we get into the part about the standards and all the stuff that we have to do, right? I wanted to talk to you about it just in the sense of personal growth, right? So writing meaningful goals for people with disabilities, supporting their personal growth, which brings independence and gives them a purpose for their life, right? We're thinking about it a little bit differently when we think about it in these terms. Okay, why goals matter. I know I'm OIDD, Carrie's OIDD. I probably have transition on here. Y'all know we wrote them stinking standards in 22. But we really do want you to think of goals more than that paperwork piece, more than that compliance piece. And I promise if we could help staff and you guys might already think like this. And it may be that you have a staff or two that are still connecting goals and paperwork, which has to be to a degree, but looking at the bigger picture and connecting it to a person's life, right? That's where we want it to be a little more than the paperwork piece. Do you have to still do the standards and write the goals the way? Yes, and we'll get there, but just open your mind a little bit and think about that goals provide direction and purpose, right? I don't know, if I've got I was about to say a teenager. I have a young adult who right now is struggling with her goals in her life. And she lacks a little bit of direction and purpose, right? Because we know if she could formalize and say, hey, I really think I want to do this, we could guide as parents and family a direction and purpose for her. But without having a goal or something that you want to work on, you really don't have direction and purpose. It's the same for our folks that we support, right? It might look a little different, but the same. They create the roadmap for our growth, right? And independence is at the end there. We want to help our folks get to as much independence as possible, right? And that helps you guys too. Have fun with the goals, right? Some of it's fun in January when January 1st comes around and you start thinking about all the things that you could do throughout the next year, right? It's fun. It's good. I probably could use some direct support on the continuity of keeping that up, right? I would like to have someone to help me keep my goals up through the year. Um, so goals also help individuals move towards the life that they want, right? So that's why they matter. The importance of personal growth in our folks, right? Every person has the right to grow and learn. I know that a lot of times it seems like our folks really like certain things only. And that could very well be the case. I certainly like certain things only. And I think our job and our role and what we should be doing for the people we support is just exposure, right? Helping them be exposed to things that they could learn to like or may have never even been exposed to, right? Think about the folks that are coming in from the community, maybe out of high school. I don't know. Maybe someone has moved to the area that have never been in your support before. You get the opportunity. You don't know what they've been exposed to, and probably they may have not been exposed to much, right? So you get to expose them to some of the things that they may learn to like or grow, be able to grow within, right? So we don't even want to give up on the folks that, well, I know all they want to do is these types of things. Try to expand on that just a little bit, because personal growth, y'all, it can be a baby step. I mean, I feel good about myself when I've done something a little bit better this time than I've done in the past, right? It doesn't have to be a big thing. Growth builds confidence and skills. We always want our folks to have more skills. Growth supports relationships, community inclusion, right? I mean, how many, of our folks that we've seen that own small businesses and things that maybe are on, our social media. I mean, they're painting. Some folks are painting. Some folks are doing all kinds of sock businesses. And you think, gosh, how cool is that? And we work with these folks, so we know they can do it, but somebody else looking in at a person with a disability who creates crazy socks for a living, I mean, it's pretty cool, right? And that helps them be more included in our community. Growth, again, beat the dead horse, but leads to greater independence and opportunities. Who knows where, a new skill could take a person, maybe into a micro enterprise, right? If you guys have that exposure and give it to them. Our responsibility, writing goals, person-centered, meaningful, we know that. Focus on strengths and potential, we know that, right? We don't have to start where that person isn't at anymore. You do that assessment and they can't do something, that does not have to be the goal, right? We don't want it to be the goal, because most likely, with adults, if you can't do it by adulthood, I mean, there might be some things you never actually want to learn how to do because it doesn't interest you, or maybe that you have the ability to do. So you start where they are, right? You guys know this. Supporting real life outcomes, not just compliance. I can't stress that enough. I think compliance could be secondary to supporting the real life outcome, because if you've done an assessment, you find out what that person wants to do, compliance is going to be a natural byproduct, right? Because you're working during your day, at home, in the setting, wherever you guys are in the community, on helping support those real life outcomes, right? And you're creating opportunities for purpose and possibility, which we've said. So when we write strong goals, we are encouraging growth, promoting the independence, supporting meaningful lives, and building a future full of possibilities. So my questions to you, right? My questions to you, do we believe this? Do we believe that that's what's happening when you write a goal? Or are we just writing a goal because OIDD and Medicaid said we had to, right? And do we believe it's possible for our folks? Do we really, truly believe that our folks can do stuff? Okay. So when I started thinking about this session, I was like, I've got to know some research on learning, people with disabilities, like some real hard stats, right? On the possibilities and what's happening when you help folks with disabilities improve their personal growth. So just a few things here. Science education gains, right? So in the study in the UK, using this curriculum, students with moderate to severe, right? We know what IQ that is. Developmental disability shows measurable improvements in science knowledge in 6 weeks when the teaching was structured and adapted for their needs, right? That could be, communication, how was it presented? Was it video? Was it reading? Was it pictures? Was it just real simple teaching? But I thought that was amazing. So in 6 weeks, our folks learned about science, reading instruction. Learners with ID, such as Down syndrome, autism, benefit from complex reading instruction. Now, I haven't done the research to know what complex reading instruction is, and maybe one of my teachers could spit it out. I don't know. But that includes phonics, vocabulary, comprehension, not just sight words, right? So our folks can benefit from learning how to read, and they can learn how to read, right? Some folks can do that. It would be within their ability. We know, and no offense to any teacher on there, school is hard. School is hard. And sometimes things get overlooked. And sometimes abilities are overlooked, right? And we don't want to also be, guilty of overlooking possibly somebody's ability to do something different. Self-management for work skills. A review found that people with IDD who receive self-management interventions, which are strategies, behavior, right? How are you helping a person with a disability manage their own behavior? How are you guys doing that? Because when you do that, it improves vocational skills like initiating tasks, completing them, managing transitions, right? Transitions are often really hard for folks. Getting on the van, getting off the van, all those things. So all those things we can learn about. So I thought that was really great. And you guys, I'm sure this one makes the most sense to you, because when we can help people with their behaviors and gain some control over their own environment, things improve. Community-based rehab framework. I'm not really sure what that framework is, y'all, but training together with non-disabled peers when possible. It promotes the best outcomes, right? I'll be happy to send this to you guys if you wanted it. I pulled it off of something. I couldn't even tell you more than that. Obviously, if you were interested in reading the publications on it, that would be another great thing to do, and you could probably come up with even more things. But I ask you, do we believe that our folks can actually do something different than maybe what they've been used to doing every single day? And what does that look like in your program? Okay, so that's my high horse about personal growth. Like I said, I could certainly use some staff to help me with mine. So anyway, I'm going to go to the maybe not so fun stuff now. So give me a second. I'm going to change my PowerPoint to this. Okay, are we seeing, let me get back to the first slide. From the assessment to the plan. Yes, okay, great. Okay, any thoughts? I'll pause. Anybody got anything? Y'all know me. I want to hear what you think. I love to hear what you think. Anybody got a good story that maybe they exposed somebody to something different that you didn't know what you were going to do about a goal? Okay, well, think on it. Please share as you'd like. Okay, so moving to what do the standards say, right? The assessment should identify abilities and strengths, interests, preferences, and needs and supports, right? We know that, right? That's what the assessment's going to say. And also, I think one thing that maybe in training even we've been missing, Carrie and I talked about this, is, okay, so yes, it needs to cover all that. And what else? What is it that that person wants to do? In a conversation, when you were talking about their abilities and their strengths, maybe there was a deficit that was talked about. Maybe they said, well, I'm really not good at making friends, right? So when you're talking about how, in an assessment situation, you're talking with an individual and they might spout that out. I don't know how to make a friend. I'm not good with that. We're having to identify and quantify and talk about all these things, but we also want to make sure that in that assessment, there is something that we found out about that person that then you guys can take and help them learn about. Okay. Does that make sense? The goal for the individual is hidden in the assessment, right? Involve the individual. Let them tell you. And boy, listen, I had the opportunity, the privilege of talking with an individual. I guess it was last week, and just trying to find out a little bit about what kind of goals we could find out for him. And it was my privilege to hear him talk about it, what he wanted to do. And together, the team came up with some great things, right? So it's a conversation, right? We're a lot of times I realize us, OIDD, me, we're guilty of telling you guys the boxes to check and what the things are to do. And yes, we have to do this because we've got a lion and we've got post payment, right? And unfortunately, that is where we are. However, assessment should be a conversation. And assessment might take more than one time, right? You might have to talk to the person a few different times in order to really find out what they might want to do. Now, you might not have to either. They might have 10 things that they want to do, and you've got to kind of narrow it down to how you can help. But it should, as much as it is a piece of paperwork, we still want it to be interactive and you to really keep the language right to what Jeff wants to do. He wants to be healthy. Jeff might say he wants to lose 5 pounds. I don't know. Jeff might say he wants to, be able to go to the gym to see the girls. I mean, that, whatever, that's, byproduct there of being healthy. I mean, whatever it is, we know our folks will share a lot with us on really what they want to do. And it might be that a girlfriend is something that person really desires, and helping them learn social appropriateness and how to maybe ask somebody out. All that can be a goal for you guys, right? So sometimes it takes trial and error if individuals do not use words to talk or do not appear interested in many things. When that is happening to you guys, like we sort of said in the beginning, exploration, right? Exposure is your goal. I will never let Alliance cite you for an exposure goal, right? Jeff needs to be exposed, and you don't have to say exposed. You could say Jeff needs to learn about new things, maybe new things in the area of arts and crafts, new things in the area of the community, new things, just whatever it might be. It is okay to write there, right? Because then every activity that you guys do in your programs is going to feed right into that because you're exposed. Only if you're not exposing them could you be cited, right? And as a program, I'm certain you guys have that piece. And if I had to guess, you're doing more of this than you realize, and we just haven't told you it was okay. That would be my guess. I don't know what you guys think. You can tell me. You can put something in the chat too if you want to. So anyway, I don't know that we have time for all my examples, y'all. So I'm going to kind of keep going here. What do the standards say? The plan should include a description of activities, training, supports to be provided, the strategies and methodologies. Now, you can unmute, or if you have your camera on, shake your head. I don't know. I can't see y'all right now. Do we expect you to write every single strategy and methodology down that's related to that goal on the plan? What happens when you type too much? Your words, your letters start becoming ant size. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller. This is just a piece that should be generalized because we are not going to hold you to the strategies you write down there. You're going to think of new ones. Those are going to be old at some point, maybe 3 months into it. We don't expect you to go back and update those strategies and methodologies. Just put a couple of things down there related to the goal that you will be trying to do during your program hours, right? Time limited. Anticipated completion date. Now, if you guys start, let's just say a golf club, one of your staff likes to golf and they really want to expose the men, women, I don't know, to golf, right? I would almost think maybe if Jeff needed to learn about playing golf as, a day activity goal, um, it might be a time limited, right? But if Jeff is really back at, I need to get to the gym to be healthy and to meet the ladies, then that's probably a longer completion date, right? You're going to probably do an annual completion date. It is not wrong to do an annual completion date. If you time limit it, right, you're going to be updating that time limited date as you monitor the plan. Does that make sense to everybody? Don't leave it blank. Alliant might cite you for a blank in the anticipated completion date section, right? But when you're talking about goals, we understand different goals are going to take different time frames for people. So with the golf goal, somebody might not, they might really get it, right? They might need to look for themselves a golf team after you teach one of your folks how to play golf, right? Or a baseball team if they can hit really far or whatever. But point being, someone might decide not to want to do the golf team anymore, or the golf, group that you've got going on at your program. And that's okay, right? So, and you might expect that from them. That's why you're like, oh, okay, this is exposure. They may not like it. I'm going to put a time limited goal. And then that will cue you to expose the person to something different at the end when you close out that goal. Okay, not a big deal. Don't want to talk a ton about anticipated completion dates. We're not seeing citations on that. I don't want you to get hung up on that. I just want you to understand, we understand that goals can be years for us as well as for the people we support, right? And you'll want to make sure it's measurable in some sort of way through a comment, right? You're just going to talk about, did they like to do it? Were they doing it a little bit better? Let's take group, for example, right? They're in a group. They're in your enclave doing some yard work. They're really great on, the blower, right? But they might, next step would be kind of expanding your skills. See if they're really talking about the weed eater, right? And they really would like to do that. But there's a lot of safety that needs to happen with that, and some other things that isn't required with blowing. And so, that would be another step, right? And another growth plan for work being done on an enclave. And how would you measure that, right? So you can say when they're using the blower, they're doing a great job. They've honestly can do their job well, right? So hardly anything really left to measure if they're an expert at the blower. So you move on, right, to the weed eater, and you're talking about real work in the community for the landscaping company. It's important to do really good work. So what kinds of things can you do to expose that individual to the next step in the enclave, which might be for them the weed eater, right? So just continue to think about stepping stones, right, of progress. Because if they've been doing in the enclave the same activity over and over and over again, they love it. Yes, they love it. Do you think our folks complain a lot? I feel like sometimes, it would be better for me to be like them, right? The folks that we support, because a lot of times people are very content with what they're doing, and that's great. And we want them to be happy, right? And also, what is the next step of exposure and what people could do in their life to gain more skills to become more independent? Hopefully that's making some sense to people. Examples, strategies, and methodologies on the plan. You might use different kind of training materials, different kind of training activities. We have, Carrie, we need to talk about what libraries are offering and what libraries have sort of talked to us about as far as it relates to our day programs. That'll be a different topic, but I'm just saying it out loud because y'all, the libraries want to be involved so much, the ones we've run into. So we'll put some stuff together on that too. And there's so many. I did not know that you can rent equipment, you can go get seeds, you can rent all kinds of things at the library now. So I just, let's not overlook that resource because it's a good one. Anyway, we'll get back to that. But the supports that you're providing could be group discussions on topics, simple convos, asking what kind of help do they need, whatever. You already have the strategies and the things that you do. Those are the things that you're writing down. But remember, I'm kind of doing this PowerPoint a little bit different. Be brief. Be brief with that, right? Think about your own life. Always apply what you're asking them. You know, if you were asked the same thing, how would that be? How would you answer? How do you expect to achieve personal growth in your own life? Anticipated completion dates, not going over that again. Measuring goals. Should be able to locate the ISP data, how the specific goals have been worked on sometime in the month. Okay, so we haven't really stepped everybody up to 402 documentation training. And what I mean by that is when we started this was a heavy lift for you guys, right? Measuring the goals in the narrative was a huge change and a very heavy lift, but guess what? You guys rose to the challenge. Carrie can even agree with me that your comments, even though I know as managers, as supervisors, you know, you want them to be better or you don't think they're that great, we think that you guys are doing an excellent job with the comments, okay? It is difficult to teach this. It's difficult for people to understand how can progress be measured in words, right? So we do want you, when you have that wonderful goal that you figured out what that person wants to work on, as simple as can be, you have to be working on that goal sometime during the month, okay? And I say month right now, maybe at my first in-person day training, I might tell you week, okay? I know that some of you guys even start with the goal in the ISP comment so that staff can remember to write how they worked on that. Because believe it or not, and please believe me when I tell you this, I know what you guys are doing isn't captured in your narrative. You are doing so much more. Your staff is doing more than what is and can be captured in those notes. Okay, so I don't think for 1 minute when your staff doesn't, when they are opening their mouth, they're not doing training probably 90% of the time. It's just not getting either connected back to the goal or written up in the note. And I don't think you could tell me any different, even as managers, because we've read the notes. We've done the looking at all the things. And you guys compared to prior to 22, it is just an amazing difference. So what I would like to tell you about that is make sure you are working on the goals weekly. Okay. Post payment is going to come in and they're going to look at the whole month. And there have been a couple of times, right? Post payment says, well, the goal is X and they haven't done anything related to X that whole month. There's nothing we can do with that, right? So make sure your activities are being recorded as as related to the goal. Does that make sense to everybody? Progress can be small, right? Or activity could stay the same. They haven't really made progress, but they're still into it. That might be me with golf. A couple of times I've gone, I've never really made any progress with it. But you know, I'll go if you want to take me, right? But I'm not really making progress, but I'm not opposed to it. And if I like doing it, maybe it is something I want to keep getting better at, right? So the comment should reflect, has the individual done better or worse? Has the individual's abilities changed, right? Has the individual enjoyed the activity that was done? Because progress might be they've never seen a golf club or a golf ball before, and they just like doing it. And so they want to do it. And so your day is filled with your staff being able to teach a hobby that they really like and an individual or two really enjoying what he's teaching them. Think about that as kind of personal growth, right? It's a new hobby. You can have goals for hobbies in day programming, right? Not career prep, we're talking about work. Not group, we're talking about work, right? But community, day activity, that's where your hobbies are, right? And you guys have got folks that are aging. Let them do some fun stuff, right?
Becky, we have a question from Kay.
Yeah.
Kay asked, they have always worked on individual goals once in the morning and once in the afternoon. Just to clarify, is once a day fine?
Oh,
Then
yeah,
they can go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Then they can do all kinds of other things during the day, some related and some not. Thanks.
I love that idea. And that might give some providers some ideas, right? There's a lot of time during a day. A goal, you might not work on a goal for an hour, y'all. Would you work? I mean, maybe if it was an exercise goal, maybe you would take a walk, right? Maybe some of that. But typically training, I mean, who's going to train for 3 hours in your program? It is expected that you guys are going to have other wonderful things going on, right? It's expected. So yes, Kay, and thank you for saying that, because that is definitely a way, right? To explain to staff, to maybe use as a training tool. We've got to work on a goal every day, and the goal is this, right? If it's a very specific goal. So thank you. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, a little bit here. Okay, so this is actual assessment and plan, right? So somebody we know adapts to change. She's able to transition depending on the mood. She is not good with giving direction, coaching. She can become aggressive, becomes frustrated, has an accident, staff remote.
Becky, I think you muted yourself.
Okay. Does anybody need me to read that again? That's how I was muted. Basically here, right? What we've been, and so I pulled it from different sections of the assessment, right? Just to condense. So all of that was in an assessment. And then we found that she needs improving with maintaining and knowing what is good hygiene. Now, my one question about this, right, is does that person want to work on it? Because y'all, there are some people that are opposed to deodorant. And I don't care how much you want to work on wearing deodorant and good hygiene, they never gonna do it. There are people we know. I mean, I do know one or two, right? For whatever reason. So making sure that it is what the person wants to do too is a little caveat here to this goal, right? Okay, so with input from the individual, so what is the goal going to be? Sarah, whoever would benefit from learning to better care for her hygiene needs, right? So discuss important good hygiene, appearance, and it might be, y'all, it might be that this person is actually interested in making friends, and you guys have talked about that, and maybe some other people talk about that person, and out of the dignity of respect, you talk to that individual and say, listen, honey, here might be some issues, and let's work on that. Is that something you want to work on? So you're helping, and sometimes there's some inference, right? You have to infer some of these things and help the people sometimes with creating a goal for their plan, but as long as they're on board with it, right? But my point being, bettering the hygiene needs might be making more friends, wanting a relationship with someone, maybe going to work and career prep, right? I mean, it could be all those things, the reason behind why this person said, well, yeah, I did say I don't have many friends, and what gets talked about, somebody smells, right? I mean, so thinking about it in those terms, very minor, couple of things mentioned in the strategies methodologies, right? You're not held to that. You can go do other things that aren't on this list. Don't keep typing them out. And then an anticipated completion date. Does that make sense? So what progress was noted, right, during the first units? It was Sarah, look at my memory, along with staff discussing purchasing items she can use for personal hygiene. Sarah did well. I think we made the name up, y'all. So if you know Sarah, she's not that one. Sarah did well with training, and staff will continue to encourage her, right? during Unit 1, she watched a video on personal hygiene after we spoke about trimming nails, flossing, making sure areas. I mean, so many things. You go into the community, you go to Walmart, you look at products, you talk about budgeting, if that's another goal, because Sarah needs to learn how to purchase her own things. I mean, make it real life, right? That's what the goal should be. Any of this stuff. If she went to Walmart, that is progress because y'all went to Walmart and you talked about what is happening. It's different if you'd been doing progress before, right? It's a shift in thinking, but this is exactly the kind of progress we're looking for. What kind of things have you guys as staff done to help that person move forward? Very simple. I think a lot of times we are thinking about it too complex. And I'm here to tell you, I want it to be easier for you. I want things to make sense to you because when it makes sense, people understand it and then they can do it. So another one in self-advocacy and self-determination, right? He can advocate for himself. He requires assistance, understands he has a disability. And when asked, he has autism. However, he doesn't feel that it prevents him from doing anything he wants. Love that. Benefit from learning personal rights. Maybe because when y'all were doing the rights training, that person really didn't know those, right? So, again, that can be made into a goal for him. Rights are so important because if he is going to work and I see that he wants to explore some community jobs, he needs to know about his rights. So these two goals go hand in hand, right? He needs to know he can speak up if something is going wrong. He needs to understand who to go to. So easy enough. We're pulling, and I'm sure that community jobs was probably a part of the other part of the assessment. So these are two great things. Notice it's a year-long completion date, right? Questions, thoughts? Here's how we noted the data. He went on an outing to look for jobs that he might have the opportunity to work. During the second unit, staff discussed his rights and gave him examples like be paid fairly for his work. Talked about what minimum wage is. Talked about you get a paycheck in your hand and you can't accept some money from someone who just wants to pay you in cash. Things like that, all related to what he wanted to learn about from the goals on his plan. So I think maybe even talking through this, what we need to help staff understand is making progress towards the goal is even what they're talking about, how they're teaching, how they're helping that person. That is also in this sense considered progress towards the goal. If that person said, you know what, I'm done, not doing it. Now, if you're having a bad day, you don't have to necessarily change your goals, right? Because I might not want to do something every single day of the week and concentrate and focus on that until you're just done with it. You've worn it out. But you'll know when that person really doesn't want that as a goal anymore, right? So if staff, said, well, hey, we're going to go, over here and we're going to look at some more places in the community for you to work. And he's like, I just don't want to do it today. It doesn't mean he hasn't made progress toward his goal, right? It just means he didn't feel like doing it that day. And that's okay too. That's learning about rights, right? You have the right to say no, to do that. And as a supervisor, that's when you would come in on a monthly basis and really say, hey, you know what? He has turned you down 10 times this past month looking for jobs. He might just need a break from that. What else is he interested in doing? What is he going to do when y'all aren't going to do that? Is that, somewhere we can, step onto and kind of have a goal outstretching from another activity that he's interested now in doing, right? And staff haven't failed either, right? They haven't failed if somebody hasn't made progress. It's not on them. I mean, you could change your strategies, right? You might use a different way to communicate or maybe you're looking at magazines and not a video, or, whatever it may be. You might change up the way you do things, but it doesn't mean that staff has failed if a person hasn't made progress. Just might need to have some changes made.